Welcome, climbers, to Policy RX. With the Rock Doc, I'm Eric Murdoch, coming to you from the doctor's office in Estes Park, Colorado. So today's episode is a special one. We're going to be talking to professional climber Lynn Hill about professional climbers doing advocacy, what's going on in Washington, D.C., and how climbers can sort of step up and make sure that we're doing the right thing in our climbing areas and for the environment. So Lynn Hill does not really need an introduction. She's one of the greatest American climbers of all time, maybe the greatest climber of all time. One of her greatest achievements was perhaps free climbing the nose in under 24 hours. She's been climbing since 1975. She's got a lot of interesting insights, and we welcome you here to Policy RX, Lynn.
Thank you, Eric.
So let's get into it. So I want to chat with you about some things that some folks might not know about you. Everyone knows your climbing exploits, but you've also written some op-eds in the Denver Post on climbing and the importance of protecting climbing and wilderness. You've gone to DC, have actually participated in lobbying events. What are your thoughts on how DC works, and why is it important for you to be involved in this way?
I think it's really important for climbers to be involved because it's been a learning curve, certainly for myself and others, to speak to people that are working on these laws and trying to educate them because, frankly, they don't really understand climbing, and this whole idea of fixed anchors in the wilderness was a huge success, and I think it took a lot of work from a lot of people to make that pass. And I'm so glad because now we don't have to worry about pulling out anchors on El Capitan or some other ridiculous things. What we need to do is make sure that it's clean, efficient, and monitored so that we can all be safe out there and we're not leaving extra junk that's not aesthetic and not in keeping with the wilderness ethic.
So when you were in DC talking about these things and informing politicians and land managers about really the way it is, were you surprised by any of the ways that DC works, or surprised about what it was like to go into these congressional offices and talk to congressional members and staffers?
Well, it was overwhelming for me because I'm not familiar like you are with how the systems work, but it does come down to just speaking to humans and trying to communicate our needs. And I think that they were very sympathetic and they were interested in understanding, and I'm sure they have a lot of other issues that come up on their desktop. And so I was glad that they took meetings with us, and I think that some of them were really psyched to meet us, and I think that does help, and that's another reason why, the professional climbers should be there and talk to these people face to face.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Let's step back to the beginnings of your climbing. So you started climbing around 1975, and you were out there. I know you were in Joshua Tree National Monument at the time. Now it's Joshua Tree National Park, and you're going around the desert. And what were your values then, and sort of how have you evolved into different types of values and thinking about different things and sort of understanding climbing in a different way as it relates to the world around you?
Well, it was a special time in the mid 70s when I started climbing. It was very much being out in beautiful places with my friends, and I felt like we were almost alone there, which is much different than today. We have so many more climbers and so many other issues to deal with. But I think, my generation, we were early environmentalists. We were picking up aluminum cans, to clean up the environment and also to get the 5 cents so that we could stay in places like the Valley longer. But I've always had that ethic of reuse and try to not use resources that we don't need. So I think that was a basic culture that I'm from, and it's evolved in the day of, today we have issues with access and dealing with waste and trail building. And there's a lot of opportunity for climbers to get together and help on those things, and especially with the political issues that we've been dealing with. So it's definitely changed a lot since I first started climbing. And I think climbers are willing to do the work. Unlike a lot of other groups, I think climbers are very enthusiastic about preserving the environment and doing the best that we can.
So you're still getting after it. You're out climbing all the time. You're hanging out with new climbers, and you really, I think you're a great person to talk to sort of understand how the climbing community has changed, because you've been at it, like you said, for 50 years nonstop. What would you say to climbers nowadays to sort of set them straight on ways to behave, things that they should be thinking about, things that might be concerning that they might not be aware of? Like, what are some advice you give to people who you're out with now when you're sort of looking over time and being like, I've seen this stuff, you should listen to me?
I think that climbers should be members of their local organizations and the Access Fund, American Alpine Club, because these organizations are equipped to send people to Washington and lawyers and the people that speak the language, because most of us just want to go out and enjoy ourselves. And I think it's important to also respect the rights of other people in all the basic ways. Don't be that obnoxious person with the big, radio blasting or whatever music, and pick up your trash. Do your part, at least. We need to keep our areas as clean and nice as we can. And actually, I think supporting the local organizations is the best way, because not everybody's going to be available to go to Washington or any of those things. So I think it's important to stay in tune with what's going on and vote for things if you can. Do everything that you can. Write letters to your senators, and I think all of those things help.
So you've managed to be a role model for decades. In fact, my daughter, who you've climbed with, wrote a report on you as this role model for her. Why do you think you've managed to stay that way? And why have you stayed so popular with the American climbing ethos for so long?
I think it starts with passion. I really love climbing, and I'm so glad that I found climbing at the age of 14, which was pretty young for the times, because we didn't have climbing gyms or easy way to learn how to climb. I was just the tag along with my older sister and her boyfriend. So I think that part of it is just that I love to be around people. I'm a social person, and I have friends of all different ages, and I think that's great. And I do sincerely believe in doing the best that we can to keep our world, clean and happy and free.
Well, I'm so glad that you've been a role model for so long and helping out people for many decades to get into climbing and to understand what it means to be a climber. You got any plans? Anything coming up in the near future? Any fun trips?
Oh, yeah. I'm
What do you got?
leaving for France and Greece next week. So I've got a variety of things. I'm going to Chamonix for a book promotion. They reprinted my book in French, and I recently wrote, it had to be less than 3,000 words since I published the book in 2002 to now. So there's a foreword that was translated into French. So I'm going to be there with my friend Nina Caprez, who came to Yosemite with me in 2018 and 2019. And she's also writing a book, so she'll be there with her 2 kids now. She has a brand new little baby that was born about a month ago. And then from there, I'm going down to an area near Presles, which is a multi-pitch climbing area outside of Grenoble. And I'm going to be working with a French film editor and musician, and we're working on a documentary about my life and sort of the whole evolution that I've witnessed over the last 50 years. And then I'm going to meet my friend from Italy who's coming to pick me up, and we're going to go climbing in Saint-Léger. And then after that, come back, do a little bit more work on the film, and then go to Greece for vacation.
That sounds incredible, and I look forward to seeing the documentary on your life. Look, Access Fund is so appreciative for your decades of advocacy and mentorship in the climbing community. So thank you so much for being a pro guest on Policy RX. And to all the climbers out there, stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to be dealing with a lot of relevant issues. We've got a couple more pro climbers and politicians lined up for this season, and we really appreciate you listening. Thanks so much, Lynn, for joining us.
You're welcome.